Welcome back to America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. How are you doing in all those nooks and crannies? Huge news out of CVS this week. We were just talking about it on our last show, making a giant decision that's going to cost them billions of dollars. And you know what it is? In case you didn't hear us and in case you haven't heard, they're pulling tobacco. They're pulling it off the shelves. Do you believe it? Neena Newberry is in our virtual green room. She's a marketing and leadership expert. Neena, welcome to the show. And how, from your point of view, how big is this for this company to take this leap?
It is a bold move. I think if you look at it in the context of what their total sales are, I mean, they sell $137 billion each year, so they've got a $2 billion potential loss from moving away from tobacco. But if you look at the other side of it in terms of the impact to the marketplace and consumers and potential partnerships, I think it really sends a big message in terms of reinforcing the values of the organization and really promoting healthy habits, which is a pretty big deal right now.
So do you imagine that they were sitting around a boardroom, and I call it spitballing, where it's ideation, you're thinking, where can we go, what should we do, we want to change the face of the company, and they decided, health, this is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on promoting health and healthy habits, and certainly that would be a bold move in that direction, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to think about this in the context of what's going on in healthcare. So healthcare is definitely going retail. It's not just your traditional hospitals and on-site clinics anymore. So places like CVS are much more of a resource for consumers to get vaccinations and other preventive care. So it really does open up a whole other ballgame, and especially with all the healthcare reform that's going on too. So jumping on this piece around healthy habits and reinforcing that, but also when you look at what CVS has done, they have partnered with over 40 health systems, including hospitals, to help run some of their clinics. And so they've got a pretty big strategy around this. So whatever they're going to lose on the tobacco front, they can certainly got a big opportunity to gain in terms of some of these clinics and other ways that they're partnering. And the fact that Walgreens and others aren't following suit, this gives them an opportunity to truly distinguish themselves and send a bolder message.
Yeah, how about the name change? So you go from CVS Caremark to CVS Health. What are the pros of that?
Well, I think your average consumer isn't really going to notice a whole heck of a lot of difference, because when you look at the signs that they're going to have, they're not going to make any changes there. So Caremark is really referring to a pretty big source of revenue for them around pharmacy benefits management. But when you add health to the end of CVS instead of Caremark, I think it again aligns with the values, the mission, the message that they're trying to send. And so, I think the real opportunity here is how they continue to do that and build on it to differentiate themselves. So I think there's a real opportunity here, but I think your average consumer is probably not going to notice a whole heck of a lot of a difference.
Yeah. Do you think one of the, you were talking about, it's, that partnership with the 40 health systems, how big that is, so is that the idea that eventually in our brains and our minds, when we start to think of CVS, yeah, you can go get a bag of licorice or you can go pick up that emergency half-gallon of milk. But guess what? Maybe this is where I need to go to have my pharmacy needs met, too. Maybe I'll just, wherever I'm picking up pills or medicines, I'll just make sure it's all at CVS, because I think of health when I think of CVS. And plus, they have 32 clinics. They opened like 32 clinics last quarter, and they want to keep pushing that. So is that the idea, brand that in our head?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's, they've got a lot of retail locations. I think their challenge is going to be how do they really allocate the space, based on the revenue that they're trying to generate. But I think for your average consumer, when you think about the kinds of things they're going to CVS for, it's convenient to go there. There are lots of locations, and it's a lot easier to get in and out. And so I think the more they add, beyond just vaccinations and flu shots, also one of the things that they're doing is focusing on helping track, chronic illnesses too. So really being able to be a resource for that. So absolutely, it is shifting the mindset for the consumer around here's a place where I can go to take care of my health and in a proactive way.
We're speaking with Neena Newberry. She is a marketing and leadership expert consulting large Fortune 500 companies. This would certainly be one of them on marketing, strategy, and leadership. And usually when you take a leap like this, you definitely have people around you. It's not something that they took lightly. They probably thought about this for a while, don't you think?
Yeah, so, I coach a lot of leaders on big decisions, and so there are typically two different levels that you look at decision-making on. One is just the facts, right, the data, the market share, the financials, what's really going on in that landscape. And then the other piece that you look at is what's the impact. Right, so what kind of buy-in is going to be required? How's this going to impact the consumer? What kind of politics are going to be involved here? Can I get the support of the right individuals to really be successful? So, you can look at the numbers and just purely look at it from that standpoint, but looking at that other piece really helps you think through, does this strategy truly make sense? And what else do I need to anticipate as I'm moving forward? And how does that inform my overall approach?
Yeah, and so the idea, obviously, as we've talked about the whole time here, is focusing on promoting health and preventative care and clinics and all of that. So we mentioned this at the top, the potential $2 billion loss, but what's the upside? Eventually, they can recoup that and see it maybe soar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing I want to point out, and which you may or may not be aware of, is that, there's a lot going on in the marketplace in terms of thinking about health. Childhood obesity is a big deal. I don't know if you're aware that this younger generation coming up is the first who may not outlive their parents. So there's some real issues here. And consumers also look to large corporations to be socially responsible. So when we talk about making a bold statement that, hey, we are not going to sell tobacco products anymore, that really has an overall impact. I think those are two other pieces that really need to be considered in terms of the power of the message and the opportunity here, both in terms of positioning them in a more effective way with healthcare organizations they could partner with, but also to the individual consumer who's looking at them and saying, okay, what are they doing? What's the message you're sending? And is this an organization that I can personally relate to and would be willing to, buy more from?
Yeah, and their competition would be other big pharmacies like Walgreens, et cetera, where they are carrying tobacco, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And so far, none of those competitors are following suit.
Yep. So actually, that's good for CVS.
Yeah, I think it gives them an opportunity to continue to convey the message out there. And there are other retail organizations as well. So like Walmart is a big one too. Walmart, Target, others that offer kind of those pharmacy services in addition to, independent places like this.
Do you think it was a strategic thing when they were mentioning they were going to start it in October and they decided, we're going to go do it now? Is that kind of a good thing to do? Kind of, the rumor was out there and it had already seeped out, and I'm sure that was planted. And then, boom, we're going to go ahead and do that a little bit earlier, and all of a sudden, hey, this is what we're doing now, and they pull it all off the shelves and replace it and make it kind of an interesting strategy to sort of top themselves and do it earlier?
Yeah, well, their comment was that, they were running out of some product, and that's why they ended up doing it. I mean, we can argue back and forth in terms of why they really did it, but I think the fact that, they did it a month earlier than anticipated gives them a lot more attention. A lot more attention and focus. Is like, wow, okay, this is a bolder move. So I think to capitalize on that is a good thing, because I think overall there's a pretty positive message in this.
Yeah, absolutely. That you may have some people that were used to, because we're creatures of habit, people who smoke and maybe they've struggled trying to quit or whatever, and they usually go to the CVS on the way home or it's around the corner. But overall, I would think that you would probably in the end gain more people, maybe. And you'd offer other things like we just said, make them synonymous with health, so that I think can make a huge difference in the marketplace. And that's what it's all about when you're competing against so many others who are trying to own that space. Neena Newberry, thanks so much for coming on America Tonight.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye-bye.